caving to cravings. Just to let you know a little bit about myself, my name's Ashley. I'm a therapist. I specialise in childhood and trauma, but also addiction. I've overcame addiction, and I've also dealt with loved ones who struggle with it, and I've studied it right the way up to PhD level. So kind of know a lot about addiction, and I'm here to share the stuff that I know with you to help you on your recovery journey. So today's little topic is about not caving to cravings. So one of the things with cravings is there's a physiological side to it. So we're having a physical feeling that we want to do it, and that's fueled by anxiety. And we've got anxiety because basically we're craving the dopamine, and that drives us to get what we want. So there's a physiological aspect to it, but there's also a mental aspect to it. So one thing that can be really helpful is, I've spoke about this in the last week, is strengthening metacognition, which means thinking about thinking. And a way to do this is, when we're having a craving, is to just sit with the craving and listen to the thoughts that arise, listen to the reasons. Because when we start to convince ourselves that we need to give in to the craving, we'll have thoughts attached to it. So it's really interesting to pay attention to that and see what kind of things it tells you. And the more you get comfortable with listening to that little voice, the more you'll realise that it's not logical, it's just trying to drive you toward giving in to whatever the craving is. So for example, it might be saying things like, sorry, I'm very hot. It might be saying things like, we've had a good time, so we should be able to celebrate, or we're doing it socially, or we don't see this person often. Or it might be, you've had a really bad time, you're going through this life situation. And the thing is, we're always going to be going through life situations. And when I actually quit my addiction, there was that many life situations that I was going through. There was multiple reasons to give in, but what I realised was, it's just going to try and do that with anything. So the more you see how outrageous that voice gets, that little addiction voice, the more you'll be able to say, actually, this is ridiculous, I'm not giving in. Hi Anonymous, nice to see you back. How you doing? I was just talking about cravings. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, while people are joining, about what I've been dealing with around addiction. So I've never really had an addiction to alcohol. I've said this a few times to people who's been on my lives, but I've always had a problematic relationship with it, and I don't deal well with it. And I cut it out for about a year. So I was on a huge health kick, so there wasn't any particular reason. And I then slipped back in, I started doing it more socially. And then it was summer, so it was getting a lot more. And I've quit. And what I noticed after I'd took it out of my, I was going to say diet. I don't think it's a diet. It's not a necessity. Definitely not a vitamin or mineral. When I took it out of my life for such a long time, when I reintroduced it, I started getting really bad anxiety the day after. And I decided to stop drinking again. So I'm just not going to drink socially. And I got drunk for the first time because I had rules. So in addiction recovery, it doesn't have to be abstinence. It can be hard and fast rules. So I'm going to stop except for these exceptions. And my exceptions was going for a meal or going on a night out, which I don't do much of either of them. So I went for a meal and a night out on Saturday, ended up getting really drunk, and I've had the worst anxiety, like really, really bad. I felt like rubbish. I still feel like rubbish today. So I've made the decision that it's not good for us, so I'm going to stop. But I've been noticing, because I've got a social event coming up next week, that I'm going into almost anxiety, which is a craving, that it's not so much a craving, rather than an overwhelmed feeling that's attached to never, around going out and not drinking. So I was like, right, I definitely do need to tackle this. It's clearly something I link to social and feeling comfortable. Anyways, let's see what people are saying. Hi, how are you doing today, Cormac? A bit rubbish. Like I say, I drank on Saturday for the first time since August, and I felt like crap for 2 days. It's just not worth it. How are you doing? Bye, Linda. Cormac, my hairstyle's so pretty, thank you. It's actually just a giant knot that I've clipped on. It's a big giant knot, but I appreciate that. Hi, Poopy's Boutique, how are you doing? Nice to see you on my live. Thanks for everyone who's joining. So let's see what people are saying. If anyone's got any questions around addiction and mental health, do ask. I'm a therapist, and I know it's an addiction channel, but I do answer mental health questions because I think it's two sides to the same coin. But let's see what people are saying. So SJ has said, any advice for 18 plus videos addiction? Yeah. So like any addiction, so if anyone's listening, they've got addiction. First of all, SJ, I've got loads of different tips and tricks on all my lives, so like feel free to go through them where I'll be able to give you a bit more, but I'll give you some top tips. So first of all, I think it's important to get curious about what the triggers are, because we have triggers, and try and think about, is there certain times that I'm more using 18 plus videos? And if there's certain habits, like habitual times you do it, that's the time to cut it out first. But also think about what purposes it's serving. So is it something where you're feeling lonely? Is it that you do it because you're bored or stressed? So try and work out what your triggers are so that you can counteract them. Is anybody who's listening going through addiction recovery who can give some tips as well to SJ about what helped them? Because it doesn't matter what addiction is, it's all the same process. But also, SJ, I'm going to answer some questions and I'll keep weaving things in throughout to help. But first of all, get curious about when and why before you start looking at the how and the what you're going to do to stop. Joey, hi, nice to see you again. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Like I said, I had a drink for the first time in a while, and it's just, I've realised, I think the aftermath isn't worth it, so I'm not going to be drinking anymore. You can all hold us accountable. That's something as well that I think is really good, SJ, is just starting to get open and honest about the impacts it's having on your life. I think the more we tell ourselves and speak to other people, it might be in groups, it might just be someone you trust, it might even just be journaling, but the more we talk about the negative impacts, the more we can't ignore them. Because I was talking in the beginning about how I have this little voice. My friend calls it the monkeys on the shoulders. I like to think of it as an alter ego, so I was named my little addicted voice. But what we start to notice is it really doesn't like to admit that we've got a problem. So I think the more we talk about actually how problematic it is, the more we can't really justify it. And that's where you're going to start to get your strength from. And there's neuroscience behind that, because if we're just acting on impulse and we're not putting names to the problems it's causing, we're using our limbic system in our brain. And what we want to do is engage our prefrontal cortex, which is about long-term thinking and rational thinking. So yeah. Right, let's see. Brett, hi, Jesus is Lord. Mohammed, I've got blocked last live. Oh, why did you get blocked last live? I've got a couple of moderators on who started helping us out, because I've been struggling to get through all the comments and getting some people just being a bit sleazy and stuff. So I don't know if they've just thought you were saying something that maybe it got interpreted wrong. So sorry about that. Bobby Light, be super kind to yourself with compassion. Absolutely. You cannot fight addiction if you are fighting yourself as well. Did an article which spoke all about this. If anyone's interested, it's got some tips in it. So just comment article on any of my, I think it might be my bio actually. Yeah, I think it's in my bio, but it's talking about that, about how it's about going to battle with addiction, and we need to be so compassionate to ourselves. And I think that was the difference between me constantly relapsing and being able to sustain recovery. I actually know somebody who's going through addiction recovery at the moment, and I didn't think about this until you've just said, Bobby, but they said that last time they found it a lot more difficult and they've ended up relapsing and then stopping again, and they said that they're finding it easier and they've got a lot more tools. And I wonder if it's been that self-love and compassion, because the self-love journey they've been on since the first time has been huge. So I wonder if that's what the difference is for how hard they're finding it. I might ask them. Tony, I'm struggling with opiates. Tony, I'm going to be doing a free support group, which is about to start very soon. If you'd like to get some support for that, just comment on any of my content support group. But also I'm doing free one-to-ones. The group's free as well. But struggling with opiates, I would say the best thing to do with that is to get somebody. It depends what, I think I need some more context as well. It depends what opiates you're on and the amount of use. But opiates is like chemically addictive as well as psychologically addictive. So if anyone's dealing with addiction, I would say the best thing you can do is try and learn about your particular addiction and what's going on, because addiction is the same and recovery is the same for any addiction. But there's slight nuances with different substances. So with opiates, they're chemically addictive, as is alcohol and benzocaines. But there are some, depending on what opiates you're on, there's different ways you can go about it. But if you want to know a one-to-one, Tony, I can absolutely talk you through it. Chris, I have one of them and I hate the voice. Yeah. I think Chris is talking about the monkeys on your shoulder, or I'll call it the alter ego. Yeah, and the more you starve it, because the thing is, this is why I was saying in the beginning to SJ, try and get curious with the voice, start to notice it. If you're constantly giving into cravings and you're not giving it a chance to start fighting back, you don't think much of it. But when you start to try and fight addiction, you'll start to hear how outrageous it gets, the excuses it gives so that you can do it. And it is, I really don't like my alter ego. But one thing as well, going back to what Bobby said about being compassionate. So one thing I've done in my recovery, and I urge my clients who are going through recovery to do, is start to be compassionate to that monkey mind or the alter ego, because you'll find that when we have addiction, it's striving from something's missing in our lives. We're trying to self-medicate. So if we start to listen to it and then be compassionate but firm, so think of it like a child, firm but fair, it starts to get a little bit easier. So that might look like, okay, why are you pushing us to give in to my addiction? And then from there, you can start to say, right, what's really going on? Was there a trigger? Are you feeling stressed? And then you can say, right, what can I do differently? Because I'm not giving in to the addiction. Not now, not today. But we could do something else which will support you in whatever needs you have now, which, like I say, might be stress. Or it might just be that you're around certain people or triggers. So then it might be, let's remove the triggers for now. Right, Joy Boy, I did the same and my girlfriend had gone mental. I'm going to get in touch with that lady you sent me in the email today, just been procrastinating. Yeah, do you know what it is? So Joy's talking about, if anyone's struggling with trauma, I've got an amazing trauma therapist who's helped me work on my trauma, and it's been really successful around sexual abuse that I experienced. And it's a somatic type of trauma therapy. But yeah, I think it's procrastination is a defense mechanism. So be kind to yourself in it. I think also if we've got things like ADHD as well, it makes it worse. But yeah, if anyone's interested in trauma therapy, certainly ask us. Right, Brian, I've been on heroin for 18 years. I've now been clean for 4 years. That's amazing. And heroin is not an easy one to get clean from. Absolutely not. It's been rated in I think it was the worst. So there's a rating of drug addiction by David Nutt, and that was the worst. So that is an amazing achievement. What advice would you give to people for what helped you get sober? For anyone listening. Oh, yeah, Mohammed, yeah, you did say I was a geek. And I said I was a geek first. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I think that's the thing. My moderators are great, but I think obviously they're trying to manage something. So I don't know if they saw the part where I said I was a geek. I don't think so. Me being a geek is offensive because I am a geek and proud. Right, I'm just going to go down and so everyone's getting... Oh no, there's not that many comments today. That's good. I was going to say I'm going to go to the bottom because I find sometimes I have a lot of comments I've got to get through. I'm addicted to British women. Well, I don't know if I'm probably the best person to be helping you with that addiction, being British. Stay away from triggers, I would say, guys. Brian, I agree. The first time is the hardest. I was talking about this today. So I think with addiction recovery, I remember the first time I got sober was so this was from ketamine, and it was for 6 weeks. And then I relapsed, and I remember feeling so down in the dumps. I don't know if anyone's experienced this, let us know, but that first relapse that I had when I had got sober, I just felt like I can't ever do this again because it took so much strength to actually do it. I had to do so many big life changes, and then just to fall it after 6 weeks, I just felt so disheartened. And I remember speaking to my friend who was also struggling with addiction, and I just said, I can't do it. Like, I'm just going to have to be an addict for the rest of my life. Quite dramatic, but it feels dramatic. And he said, well, no, you've done it now. So at least you know you've done it. And the next time when you're ready, you can remind yourself that you've done it. So I fully agree with what Brian's saying. The first time is the hardest because you don't actually know that you can do it. And that's the scariest thing about addiction, or it was for me, is I was thinking, I actually don't know if this is possible. Like I was quietly accepting my fate that I'm probably going to be an addict for the rest of my life. And the hard thing is I've seen people who've struggled with addiction for like decades and still haven't got out of it. So then, you know, it is a really scary spot. But yeah, once you've done it the first time, at least you know you can. Still very hard, like extremely hard. Poopy's Boutique has said self-love is so important. Absolutely. I think that is the single most important thing for addiction recovery is self-love. And for anyone who's listening who's in active addiction and maybe you're procrastinating, like Joey said, and you don't know, you want to make steps toward it, but you're not quite ready to stop, that's fine, because we have to stop when we're ready, because we're going to have such a level of grit and determination, aka resilience, to get us through. So if you're sat here thinking, I want to stop, but I'm not quite ready, I'm on the precipice, I would say the best thing you can do now is start to love yourself and do whatever you can to love yourself. And then when you're ready to make the jump, you'll be able to do it a little bit easier. Brian, can you please cover your skin a little bit more? No, I'm not even wearing a bra today because I was actually gonna wear one, and I thought I don't normally. So like for me, I feel like as a woman and just as a human being, I think we get oppressed a lot. I think we get told that we have to wear this and we have to do that to fit in with society or to like be a certain way. And I've just got to the point where actually I only do things for myself now. So I'm not going to do anything for anybody else. So I don't mean that in a rude way, but just kind of a stay in your own lane way, and I'm going to stay in my own lane. If you find it offensive that I've got me some skin out or I'm not wearing a bra or whatever because it's comfortable, just go on a different live is what I've got to say to that. Jay, where do I apply for one-to-ones? So I don't do full addiction sessions with people anymore. I'm just doing this on a voluntary basis. But what I do recognise is doing lives and answering questions, especially when I can't even get through all the comments, isn't enough. So I am offering free one-to-ones. But it's a one-off one-to-one, which you can absolutely have, Jay. Just comment on any of my content saying 1-to-1. And I'm also doing a free group. Thanks for everybody who's liked, by the way. I keep seeing little love hearts coming up. That's so helpful. And if anyone could subscribe, that would be so helpful. It's free and it's really helpful, but obviously just showing up is great. And commenting is helpful as well. So thanks, guys. Chris, the worse it gets, and sometimes that's all I hear all day, saying everything that you're just not good even. Yeah, that's the thing, just constantly putting yourself down, isn't it? I think we're talking about the monkeys on your shoulder, or we're talking about mental health, addiction. Oh God, my brain's not working. Talking about an alter ego, I think that applies to just our negative thoughts. You know, it's really hard when we've got this internal dialogue that's just constantly putting you down. And I think especially in addiction recovery early days, that really does get dialed up. So it's so important to clean that up. And the way I do it, if I'm having negative thoughts, it's hard to stop the negative thoughts by just not thinking. So instead, what I do is I counteract it and I actually say it out loud. So if I say something like, to quote Chris, like, oh God, you're just not good enough or whatever, I'll then say out loud, hang on a minute, Ashley, yes you are mint, stop it berating yourself, clearly you're not feeling good right now, let's go do something kind, something that makes you feel happy. THX, exactly, noticing what's missing is key, 100%. Working out what's missing. So for me, when I'm thinking, because I was talking about my drinking in the beginning, I think that's a case of social anxiety. So I'm autistic. And I think one of the things is I've always struggled with social anxiety, but I've got ADHD. So I've always been very sociable, but then I also struggle with social anxiety, which is a bit of a paradox to deal with. And I think alcohol's allowed us. So the thing that's missing for me is that confidence in social settings to just be myself. So that's something I'm having to work on, and that's self-love. And also, just for me, it's so habitual. So it's not about loving myself in groups, it's more about, okay, I've learned to love myself, now it's time to take off the training wheels of the bike. So I've learned to love myself. Let's just get rid of the alcohol and go out and try enjoy myself without alcohol, because I know that I love myself and I've worked on my confidence enough to do that. So yeah, for me, I think it was that confidence in social groups which was missing. With ketamine, that was another addiction. The thing that was missing for me was my anxiety. I had really bad anxiety, and it was a sedative, so it was turning down my thoughts, and also elevating, because I was getting dopamine, this feeling of happiness, which was a good combination. So I had to learn to create happiness in my life without the drug, and I had to learn how to manage my thoughts so that my brain was a safe space to be in. Right, BMW, I'm your number one customer. I would love to hear all about it. There's nothing better than listening to somebody who is highly educated. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I've studied it a lot. I'm autistic, so I think my special interest is just how people work and addiction. I think realistically, the addiction isn't necessarily something I'm really passionate about. It's just something I've dealt with a lot in my life. I've had a lot of people who are addicted around us. I've dealt with addiction, so I got interested through that way. But thank you for the compliment. Congratulations on your recovery, brain, Poopy's Boutique said. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it is something that we need to praise ourselves. Anybody who's in recovery, like, I really hope that you're sitting there praising yourself for how mint you are, because it's not for the faint-hearted. And I think there's so much stigma around addiction. And I think what there needs to be is a recognition of just how hard addiction is. I don't think people realise just how hard that is. So if you're in addiction, I want you to be really compassionate with yourself, because you're going through something that is horrendous and you're still here and still here to listen to us live. So that is a win. And then if you're in recovery, the strength and determination it takes and the self-compassion and level of self-love is so admirable. So yeah, I'm going to say thank you for the congratulations, and I hope everybody else is congratulating themselves as well. Chris, I'm ex-military and I'm still dealing with PTSD. Yeah, I used to be a head of veteran charities, so I used to be head of counselling for veterans. Chris, there's somebody, she's private, but she charges a really good rate, who deals with PTSD. She does therapy, but it's a one-off, so you might only have 1 to 3 sessions. And I have PTSD from sexual abuse. I had PTSD, and I did some work with that around that, and it's really worked. It's been so helpful. So if that's something you're interested in, let us know. But yeah, that is one of the biggest things. I don't know if you've struggled with addiction, Chris, or not. I feel like you have. I'm trying to remember everyone. But yeah, it's so addiction and ex-military is so common, because one, in the military, it used to be very alcohol based, wasn't it, with like mess and everything. But then also PTSD, you know, if we look at addiction, it's self-medicating, and PTSD is something really difficult to live with. So it's, I would say, very, very understandable that a lot of ex-military end up struggling with addiction, which is why with the veteran charity I worked with, we started introducing an addiction service as well. Right, I'm going to go down to the bottom and I'm just going to dot around with the comments now, because I can see them adding up and I want to give everyone a fair chance. So I'm just going to pick comments at random. Sydney, hi from New Zealand. I need this. Hi to New Zealand. I'm from Newcastle in England. I'm glad it's helpful. Sydney, if you're wanting, I don't know if you're going through active addiction or recovery and that's why you need it, but if you're wanting some support, I'm doing a free group. Anybody else who wants to be involved, just comment on any of my content, free group, and I will send you the details. Somebody said the psychology of addiction is fucking amazing. It really is. I'm just about to watch as well. I can't remember her name. It's just came out on the Diary of a CEO, and it's so, I think it's titled what's her name? Basically, it's very recent and it's about a neuroscientist, and she talks about addiction in it. I'm just about to watch it. I'm very excited, but I love the psychology behind addiction. And this is what I'll say, anybody who is in active addiction or early stages of recovery, a great thing that you can do, and again, for SJ, if you're listening still, because I said I'd weave in tips, one of the best things you can do is look into the neuroscience behind addiction, look into the psychology behind addiction, because it's going to really help you understand what's going on, which means you can counteract it. And second of all, break down the shame, because I think a lot of the times we feel a lot of guilt and shame. And if we can understand the psychology behind it, then you start to think, actually, this isn't my fault. Addiction is just a solution to a problem. And you can start to come up with better solutions without berating yourself. So it helps with that self-love. Also, I know there's 210 people. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, that would be so helpful, because I've not got many subscribers at the moment, and it would be helpful for us to get paid by YouTube to help you guys for free. Right, I'm just going to scroll through the comments and pick them at random. BMW, I can just imagine her yelling at taxi drivers, throwing over the back seats, swearing and yelling. Me? I'm very chilled now. I used to have really bad emotional dysregulation, and I've really learned how to calm it down. Still have my moments, not gonna lie, I'm still human. Maxie is saying I also have PTSD. I think you'll find a lot of people who struggle with addiction do have PTSD because it's a way of self-medicating that. So there was the biggest study that's ever been done on addiction was on 20,000 participants. So that, as somebody who has done who's done 2 degrees and a master's and looked at research, that is a lot. It's uncommon to have 20,000 people. And what they found was 2/3 of the people who were struggling, this was opiate addiction, 2/3 of the people with opiate addiction had struggled with sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse, and 90-odd%, I can't remember the statistic, but 90-something% of them had experienced child abuse. So what that shows you is like because heroin is it's a pain relief. So I always say, look at what purpose your addiction's serving. So if you're in opiates, what you'll probably find is that it's because it affects your pain receptors that you're probably numbing some kind of pain. So what that's saying is that the majority of opiate users were numbing some pain with their addiction to opiates. So yeah, so it's very common when we have PTSD to have addiction as well, because you're self-medicating that. So then it becomes this delicate balance of having to heal the trauma and also the addiction. The problem is if you heal the trauma, you're more likely to lean into the addiction. So what I would suggest is that you learn to love yourself as much as possible. Then when you're loving yourself as much as possible and you've got a support group around you, whether that's AA, NA, friends, I did it with friends, not in an NA setting, whatever it is, smart meetings. Once you've got a support network around you, you're working on loving yourself, then tackle the addiction. Then when you're in a good headspace with the right people, then tackle the trauma. So yeah. Right, I'm going to scroll around and pick one at random. Give me the name of the neuroscientist you would mention and I'll subscribe to your channel. I can't remember the name of them, but if you comment on any of my content, I'll send you a link for it. I just can't remember. It's escaped us, the name. But it's one of the most recent Diary of a CEOs. And I suggest just give us a subscribe anyways, guys. Gomez, how much for an hour of your time? I'm just working on a voluntary basis, Gomez. So I'll give you an hour of my time for free. I'm giving that to people who are in dire straits, who'll get an hour of my time for free. Then for people who want to be in the support group, also a possibility. I'm just not charging anymore. This is why I'm asking people to subscribe. I'd rather get paid off YouTube to help you guys for free. So yeah. Eben, best way out of addiction is connection. Surrounding yourself with the right people is a must. 100% agree with that. And it's part of that is looking at who are the people in your life at the moment. What kind of connections you have in your life, and really being honest with yourself about that. And then thinking about, okay, if they're not great connections, do I need to start putting in boundaries, or do I need to remove myself from these people fully? There's a really great TED Talks called Everything We Know About Addiction is Wrong, and I'd suggest everyone to listen to it. And it's by Johan Hari, and it literally talks about what Eben says about it says that antidote to addiction is connection, and it talks about the science behind it and what research says about this. Right, so James has said, if you can't remember abuse as a child, how is it PTSD? That's a really good question. So if there's a really great book called The Body Keeps the Score, guys, if you're readers or even if you like audiobooks, I'd suggest listen to it if you've struggled with PTSD, and or just if you know it, you might not even realize you have it. So if you just get in fight or flight go into fight or flight with situations, quite often it might be PTSD. So basic or lower level. So Beza von der Kolk, who wrote the book called The Body Keeps the Score, and he's a leader in the field of trauma, him and Peter Levine, who did Wake and the Tiger, another great book. And what they both talk about is, so when we have trauma, our brains recognizes, so we can remember things and, right, I'm going to talk about, for me, I'll talk about my trauma. So I had sexual abuse with a partner and I had trauma, so I knew what happened, so I could conceptualize it in my brain. The problem was, and this is what The Body Keeps the Score and Wake and the Tiger talks about, and a lot of trauma research, is my body logged that trauma as well. So I worked on my mind, I worked around what was going on in talking therapies, and that was helpful. But the problem was, in certain situations, my body would tense up and it was impacting my intimate relationships. And it was because my body kept the score, my body remembered the trauma. So in certain situations that my body was being activated and it was sending us into fight or flight. So even if I couldn't remember the trauma, my body's getting activated in certain situations. So if you have PTSD as a child, you might not remember it in your brain, but you might remember it in your body. And this is actually quite common because if you look at people who've had repeated child trauma, what you'll find is they can't remember their childhood very well. And this is actually a defense mechanism. So what happens is your brain stops pushing things into your long-term memory as a defense mechanism because the memories are too painful. So you're experiencing repeated trauma, but you don't have the memory of it. So it's the body that you've got to heal. And that's why I think if we've struggled with PTSD, one of the best things you can do is somatic trauma therapy, which is basically counselling jargon for EMDR, havening, tapping, all these different things. There's a few different ones, and it's working on the body as well as the mind. Right, let's see what else we've got. I'm just going to scroll about at random. Oh, it's Harry said subscribed. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody else who's subscribed. Jack said, what drugs was I on? So my psychiatrist said that I was addicted to mind-altering substances. So essentially, that is jargon for I was off my nut every day of my 20s and early 30s. Just something, alcohol, weed, coke, pills, ket. The addiction that I really struggled with was ketamine. That was the one that really got us. And then sugar was a really bad one. And that's one where I've had to learn to have sugar in a healthy way, which is a really, I think, a hard addiction. I really feel for people who have like addictions with food, like problematic relationships with food, because you can't cut it out. You've got to learn how to manage it, which is really difficult. Right. I'm on disulfiram for alcohol abuse. I've been off alcohol for 7 months thanks to that. That's really great. So I've heard about a drug that you can have that helps you with alcohol addiction. I didn't realise that was the name of it. I'm glad you shared that. Yeah, because a lot of people don't realise there's actually a drug that you can get prescribed to help you with alcoholism. So clearly, I've never known somebody who's used it, so it's good to know that works. So if anyone's struggling with alcohol addiction, that's a good tip. Speak to your GP. And I think that's one of the things, I think we get so scared to open up about our addiction for fear of judgment that actually we cut ourselves off from a lot of tools which will be helpful. So there's somebody saying that struggle with opiate addiction. If you have heroin addiction, there's medications that can help. if we go to services and we make that leap to say, I'm struggling, we can get support from other people. But it's about being brave enough to say, I'm struggling, and going for that support. Thanks for everybody who's giving us little party hats and likes. I really appreciate it. Right, let's go. I'm going to scroll through and see what people are saying. Albans has said, you haven't cured your phone addiction. It's Monday morning and you're on a short. Well, I've actually done very well. So there's me and someone called RHS who made a pact on one of my lives. I don't know if he's on at the moment. To keep each other accountable for doom scrolling. And I was talking to my friend about this today. So the only time I'm allowing myself to doom scroll now is for this 45-minute window that I have when my son's going to sleep, because I have to stay in the room while he does it. And I was doom scrolling quite a lot. It was really bad. And I've actually been noticing that little voice in my head, my addiction alter ego, saying, oh, well, just have a little doom scroll now. It'll just calm you down. Oh, you're bored. A little one won't harm. And I've been very strong with it. And yeah, so I have cured my phone addiction in the sense that I'm not doing it, but it is a struggle. So I think I've still got some time to go with it. But I think doing lives isn't the same as doom scrolling, because I feel good after this. And I think this is the thing with an addiction is, if it's a problem, it's an addiction. And if it's a problem that you want to stop, that you can't stop. I don't feel like this is a problem. I think it's quite positive for us. Irish has said, hi, nice to hear you talk. I'm 2 years around myself now. 2 years is a really, really good spot, because after 2 years, your brain's recalibrated. So neuroscience shows that even the worst of addictions, your brain's recalibrated at that point. So that's great. How do you feel? And what would you say to people Irish who are listening, who's struggling with active addiction? What was the thing that helped the most? I'm going to scroll through, see what people are saying. Fire Starlord, 100% of people who can't figure their shit out don't hang around with me. Yeah, it's so important that we take stock of who we're around. There was a study called the Bad Apple Study. And basically what they did is they got two groups of people in a work environment, and they put a bad apple in one of the groups. So one was a control group, one where it was just positive people. And then there was, I can't remember the amount, but say there's 6 people. And in one group, 6 people were positive. In the other group, 5 people were positive and 1 was negative. And they found that just one 45-minute interaction with the bad apple once a week dimmed the productivity of that group hugely. So it impacted everyone's mood and the productivity of being around one bad apple for 45 minutes. So imagine if you've got bad apples in your life, a bunch of bad apples, and you're the only one, that you are going to get spoiled. There is no way you can be around a bunch of bad apples day in, day out and be living a happy, positive life. So yeah, so important that we're careful of who we're around. 100%. I've only got little lovely green apples, thriving apples in my life now, and honestly, it's such a difference. Like, I'm so careful about who's in my life, and my life has just drastically improved since I made that decision. Tyler, what language am I speaking? It's meant to be English. But it's because I'm from Newcastle, England. It gets a bit ropey the more north you get in England. Ricky, addiction is hell. Literally. Oh God, it's so horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst nightmare. One of my friends are going through addiction recovery now, and I am so proud of them. They are doing amazing. I'm so proud of them, but I do not envy them. I do not envy them one bit. I just watching them go through it is reminding us of how hard it was. I've got so much pride for her though. Lovely. Have you dealt with PTSD? Yeah, CPTSD, which is counselling jargon for childhood post-traumatic stress disorder, and PTSD from sexual abuse with my first partner. But I've healed it, and I will say it's been really hard. I think you've got to attack if you've got PTSD. Anyone who's listening, the way that I've managed to heal mine has been through four different components. So the first of all was talking about it, so putting language to it in a safe space. The second was healing the mind and letting go of all the shame around it. And just desensitizing it through talking. The second thing that I've had to do is I've had to so mind, body, soul, I think is important. So for me, I don't mean you have to be spiritual, although I am spiritual and that has really helped me. But I think feeling at peace with myself, so learning that like I'm a human being and I didn't deserve that, and working on that, so working on getting back to myself, because I had so much shame around my PTSD. The third thing is body. I had to do somatic healing. So like I've said, I did havening, which is a type of somatic therapy, but I've also done a lot of stuff around, you can do what's called biofeedback loop. So when we have PTSD, what happens is we tend to, certainly in triggering situations, but for me it was just continuously, I was in a constant state of fight or flight, and that looked like tense jaw, shoulders crunched, just constantly feeling like my whole body was like this, contracted, like in a brace position. So I've done a lot of somatic healing on relaxing my body, working on my posture. Had to go to a chiropractor for that because I had been so hunched over for so long in my life that I had to actually get some physical help. So things like that, relaxing my jaw, working on breath work. So that was the body side of PTSD. And finally, connection. That's why for me it was so important to be around lush people all the time, because that allowed my body to think, okay, my environment's safe. So yeah, hope that was helpful. SJ said, what do you think of the bupo injection to get clean? I've never heard of it. I've never heard of that. What is the bupo injection? I've seen dopamine patches as a new thing I've seen that about addiction, and I haven't tried them. I could try them out for you guys to let you know, because I'm about to quit smoke. I'm going to quit vaping. But I think I prefer to do it properly. But yeah, apparently there's dopamine patches. I don't know what the bupo injection is. Hypnotherapy is a good one for addiction recovery to try as well. There's research around addiction recovery and hypnotherapy. My nana actually quit smoking through hypnotherapy. Right, coprophilius refers to sexual excitement from viewing, smelling, or handling feces, as well as, I don't know what's happened there. Right, I've got a lot of, that's just cut off my comment there, but I feel like that was, I don't know where that comment was going, where you were going with it. So I'm just going to scroll around and try and give everyone an equal chance, because there's a lot of comments. Mouse Charger said, morning, just popped in, listening. I'm a newbie. Can I ask what addiction you had? Yeah. So I've said this before, mind-altering substances. I was just addicted to anything and everything that took me out of my mind. And ketamine, sugar, vaping. I'm still struggling with vaping, but I'm doing an addiction recovery group, which I'm starting in 2 weeks' time. And I'm going to quit vaping with everyone, because I feel like it's only fair that I'm doing it as well. Do you know what I mean? Alcohol's my vice. I'd love to stop it, but I enjoy it too much. So a good thing when we enjoy something is there's something called motivational interviewing. So first of all, look at why do you enjoy it? Like what is it that gives you enjoyment? And then see if you can replace it with something else. So I think what we'd need is some information of what you enjoy about it, because then we can start to come up with a better solution. The second thing is write down all the things you enjoy about it. So be honest, but then after you've done that, ask yourself, what are the things that maybe you don't enjoy so much about it? And write them down and start to weigh up, is the stuff that you don't enjoy with the stuff that you do enjoy about it? Because for me, I think you have to get to a point where you've got some solid, concrete reasons for why you're stopping the addiction, because you're going to need that to carry yourself through. But also, by doing that activity, you're engaging the long-term part of your brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. I say it all the time, but it's so important, because anytime we think long-term or we think rationally about our addiction, what we're doing is engaging the part of our brain which is responsible for impulse control. So yeah. Right, A0000. I'm just going to call you A0. You know the time I lost on therapists I will never get back. I hate them. Let's see what's it. I hate them more than anything else on this planet. Why do you hate therapists? There is some very bad therapists out there. One of the things with being a therapist is, and I'm a therapist, and I think looking back on the early part of my career, I was probably quite a bad therapist as well, is therapists are probably quite struggling with stuff themselves. Like every person has got trauma and stuff going on, and you need to actively be working on that stuff, because if not, you're just coming in projecting loads of your own crap onto other people. And also, I think one of the things as well is you feel like an expert, and I think to be a good therapist, you have to be able to hold your hands up and say, I actually am also a human being who doesn't have it all together, and that's okay, but I've learned a bit of stuff, and hopefully I can help you get yourself a bit more together. But yeah, there's a lot of bad therapists. But why do you hate them? The monster said, relaxed your jaw. Only our most successful actresses know this. Yeah, relaxing your jaw is so important. It's just, I like massage it there. I used to wake up every morning and I'd have jaw ache. I used to grind my teeth off being so clenched. So anybody who struggles with that, just keep practicing. Anytime I noticed that I was tense up, I'll just relax myself, and it started becoming an unconscious process. Right, I'm actually so tired, guys. I find it quite overwhelming answering loads of questions. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna do another 10 minutes and then I'm gonna go. Proof said, people like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you could subscribe, it's so helpful. It's just a super free thing that you can do. And I'd really appreciate that. But just thanks everyone for showing up. That's so helpful. Amini, does addiction by definition have a negative meaning? So it depends. So addiction, I say this all the time, but I'm just going to keep hammering it in for those who haven't heard. So addiction by definition is a problem. So to define a problem, that's going to be something that you think is problematic, the user. So for me, I realised that ketamine, which was my addiction, was a problem. So it's a problem that you want to stop, that you can't stop. So addiction is negative, because if you feel like you've got a problem, that's not a positive thing. Problems aren't positive. Let's be real. So they're human and everybody has problems, but it's not a positive thing. So the question isn't whether the addiction is a problem, it's whether the thing you're dealing with you identify as a problem or an addiction. Because if you just say you smoke weed and you enjoy it and you don't think it impacts your life negatively, your quality of life is great, that's fine. Like, that's not an addiction. If you think that this is fine, I enjoy it. If I wanted to stop it, I could stop it. It just doesn't matter. There is no point in even having the discussion. It's only if it's a problem. Now, if you smoke weed and you think, actually, I don't, it's bad for my health. You know, I've got the munchies, so I'm eating ridiculous amounts of food. I'm waking up the next day feeling like crap. Getting really bad cravings when I can't have it. It's messing with my mental health. Then it's a problem. And if you can't stop it and you want to, then it's an addiction. So I think it's just important to remember that you decide if you've got the addiction, and don't shame yourself. If it's not a problem, it's not a problem. I'm not here to judge. Yeah, so American Muscle is saying, I don't like weed. It makes me lazy and paranoid. Yeah, exactly. Then it's a problem. But then I know people who smoke weed all day, every day. They've done it since they were 14 and they love it. It doesn't impact them. They live a happy, healthy life. That's fine. Yeah, I also get really paranoid and weird off weed, by the way. Me and weed do not go well together. My brain just cannot handle it. Right, okay, let's see. Addicted to energy drinks, yeah. Really not healthy for you, energy drinks. And it's just, again, it's about recognizing what are you getting from the energy drinks and how can you replace that with something healthy. And again, like I always say, try and tackle the habit first. So if the first thing you do when you wake up is get an energy drink, try and put it off. Maybe get something, have a glass of water with a hydration. You can get like hydration tablets. I've just bought some today. Try and have one of them first. See if that gives you energy. Replace it with a green tea or something more positive. Adele, first time seeing you and subscribed because I needed it. Thank you. If you're saying you needed it, I'm doing a free addiction group, which you're welcome to join. Just comment on any of my content, addiction group. Oh, Ez, hello. I quit smoking cigs cold turkey 2 weeks ago today after 13 years of smoking. I quit vaping I only managed 3 weeks. I am going to be doing it with my addiction support group in 2 weeks' time. But oh my God, it is so hard, isn't it? I've smoked since I was 12 or 13. I think it was 12. I'm 36 now. And it was so hard because it's a chemical addiction as well. So big respect to you, Ez. It's amazing. And how are you finding it? How are you finding it? What tips would you say for people? Right, I'm going to scroll up to the middle, see if there's something here that I can answer. And then I think probably 2 more comments after that. So Adele's saying, I enjoy drinking. It makes my mind go blank and forget all of my trauma. Hate how it's affecting my relationship. I'm so sorry to hear that, Adele. And that's the thing. This is where I think, look, Adele, I'm happy to do a one session with you and we can talk about it because I recognise I can't give you the level of support you'll need through a screen without seeing you. I think it needs to be a two-way street. So like I say, comment on any of my content. But that's the thing. We need to understand as a society, first of all, on a policy, from policy to society to an individual level, that addiction is self-medication. We are just medicating either undiagnosed mental health disorders, or we're medicating trauma, or we're medicating some kind of, and when I talk about trauma, that might be, I'm so severely lonely. Like, to our brains, that's traumatic. We're social creatures, we're tribal animals, we're supposed to be in a social setting. So one of the big things that I noticed was linked in with mental health and addiction. Because what I got taught is that a lot of it's to do with childhood. But what I actually found is that and that's like childhood with our relationships, our caregivers. And what I found that a lot of people who came through the door, actually one of the biggest impacts they had was bullying at school. The amount of people who are had to work with who've really been impacted by bullying is huge. And it's because we're social creatures and it's a time when we're learning our identity. So yeah, so it makes sense, Adele, that you're drinking to forget your trauma, because that is what we're doing. Any addiction is self-medicating. So yeah, and I'm just really sorry that you're going through that, but I think the first thing is dismantling the shame around that and recognizing, okay, addiction's a solution to another problem. And as soon as we realize addiction's a solution to a problem, we can say, right, it's a solution, albeit not a great one, but let's work on the problem and let's find a better solution. Right, last comment, guys, because I am tired and I'm going to go to the middle. Alcohol is my... Oh, I've already read that one. Right, I'm going to go to the bottom. Let's go to the bottom, guys. Nelia saying, stop crying about being bullied, you nerds. Well, I mean, it's quite a big thing getting bullied. As I've just said, but yeah, I'm going to go for a different question. Maybe you're being sarcastic, I don't know. I'd like to think you're being sarcastic. Is that a key on your chain? Right, this isn't an addiction question, but I'm going to end it on this one. Is that a key on a chain? No, it's a coffee bean, and this is, I think it's Italian. They were me mum's. Right. I did just say something. You're getting bullied on your channel. Oh, I've got such thick skin, guys. Like, you could honestly, you can see your waist to me. I'm not bothered. I love myself so much, it just rebounds off hers. I think when people are bullying, it's more of a reflection of them than me. So I don't really care what people have got to say. My skin's too thick, guys. But I am really... Oh, God. I'm really going to go... I'm going to end on this joke. Why did the crab cross the road? It didn't. It used the sidewalk. God's sake. Oh, God. Oh, hi, Gypsy Dave. Nice to see you. I'm just about to leave. Me regulator's come on. Thank you so much. I really appreciate me regulator. Right, I'm going to go, guys. So it's been lovely speaking to you. Anybody who hasn't subscribed, that would be really helpful. Obviously, you don't have to. Anyone who's commented, I'm really sorry that I've not got through all the comments. I will be going live again tonight at 9 p.m. GMT time, and I go live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. in the morning, 9 p.m. at night GMT time. So yeah, thanks for everyone who's joined, and I'll speak to you tonight and see you soon. Bye.